I'm Ted Fairbank, and I'm a lieutenant. Probably the biggest raid I went on was a multi-boat raid. We went down, I think there were 6 boats, as I remember. We went down, replenished off to a Coast Guard cutter. All the Coast Guard guys standing there saying, God, we want to be on Swifts, we want to be on Swifts. I said, sure. And we began running in the river, ran up, ran across, and once again, I'm sorry, I forget the names of the rivers, and then swung down the river leading down to the Gulf of Tonkin, down to the south. And there was a boat, and my boat was the senior boat, so there was a boat that was being laggardly, and so we put them in front. And what happens when you go in on these, and my crew was very good at this, before you go in where you're going to get in combat, you get the boat ready. Among other things, you flake out a line from the front cleat all the way back and then forward again, so that if someone gets hit, you can set up a tow immediately. No, I'm sorry, I went backwards to the back cleat, forward, and then back, so you can set up a tow immediately. And we were then the second boat, watching and going along big bank on the right, dense forest on the left, starboard and port if you prefer, all of a sudden we were hit by a big ambush, and the lead boat took a rocket hit and took machine gun fire. They counted the holes in the gun tub in the front boat, lead boat, 32 bullet holes. The gunner was not hit. They were knocked out. I was looking, telling the twin 50s, because we had a rule on my boat, you return fire in 3 seconds. Because when a 50 caliber round is coming in, it's very noisy, and you're not going to take time to aim with those coming in around you. So twin 50s, we put together a rig so we carry several thousand rounds for each one. Doing that, and I had the gunner on the fantail. I said, cover the other side because we don't know if they're on both sides. Boat front was hit. We picked up speed, said, take him in tow. Boatswain was there, line went over, we took him in tow, and we towed him out of there. And the rest of the boats shot their way out. But it was, there were a lot of boats hit. We then proceeded down to a not floating dock, but floating base down in the Southern Gulf, where we tied up for the night. Went over what we'd done that day, what had gone on. It's the only time I can remember that all the officers slept in the same bunk room, and it's the only time it happened to me the whole time I was there. Hard to sleep because people kept bolting upright, shouting, all back full, fire on the left, fire on the left, fire. People were dreaming about and reliving what they'd been through that day, and it was a little disturbing. Next day we took off again, heading back north. We left the shot up boat behind, heading up a river, we saw a canal. We thought we saw some activity in that little canal on the right, and sent 2 boats up there, and all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. They were ambushed. We began to take fire again. One of the boats had all of their windows shot out. Once again, we shot our way out of that one. Laid down mortars. My bosun mate was particularly adept. We practiced this and taking an 81 millimeter mortar with a built-in recoil. And that meant that instead of firing this big arc like this, you could fire a flat trajectory. And I thought about it and said, look at Mac, if you put those rounds up in the trees above where we think they're coming from, that shrapnel's going to spray straight down, and that'll scare them. So we had rounds laid out ready to go in the end. And of course, one of the idiocies of the whole thing, one of the best kept secrets for us when we were out as well, was we had a box of 81 millimeter mortar ammunition on the fantail. If they ever knew that and began shooting at that, could have blown the whole boat up anyway. But so Mac was laying down 81 millimeter mortar rounds into the trees and the whole bit, and we suppressed the fire and got out. ran up the river and ran out and ran back the Coast Guard carrier, and all those young seamen who wanted to join us the day before changed their minds when they saw us, and we took on fuel one, headed home, get the boats patched up. When we were on our way out, we passed, there had been an ambush, one of the early ambushes of the boats, one of the first times when we were going up the rivers. I wasn't on it, but I knew all about it, I had a tape of it. It was one Captain Hoffman had ordered the boats to run in the middle and half a mile apart. And he was up in a helicopter watching, and there was a former helicopter pilot who was a newsman who was making a tape of it, and that's the tape we all had. And they got ambushed on this river from both sides. From bunkers, the VC were dug in. They knew they were coming. Their radio communication monitoring was very, very apt. And when we discovered early on that if you asked for permission to go into a territory a day beforehand, they'd be waiting. So, ambush from both sides. A good friend, Dinky, was killed. Other people were shut up. The helicopter pilot went crazy on the radio. You know, sure the boats had turned and run to get out, and it was two parts of that. One, when we came out from that raid I was just describing, we came out through there, and they had defoliated the riverbank, and I could see the bunkers. And it's literally the only time when I was in Vietnam when my stomach knotted up, when I got nervous. And I said to my gunner, Mac, once again on the after 50 caliber, I said, I want rounds in every bunker. I want a spray of rounds in every bunker to see if you can draw fire before we get there. And he did. He put rounds in every bunker where we're heading up. Nothing. It was deserted. The other thing that came out of that, by the way, is that experience of having the boats apart, half mile apart on the river in the middle. When we thought about it, I said, this is idiocy. I mean, they're aluminum boats, 22 bullet goes through the whole thing. You know, B-40 rocket would hit and spin around because you need to have enough of an impact to set the exploder back to make it go off, and there wasn't enough when it goes through the shell of the boat, usually. And so we began to evolve our own strategies, and that was running the boats tighter together and down the riverbanks. Said if they want to fight, we'll fire our 50s point blank. We will bring more lead to bear on them than they can do. And just to protect yourself, we began running boats down both sides of the river at the same time, so they couldn't have no more running in the river in the middle where you were ambushed, but rather both sides. I mean, we'd already gone through, we knew about the traps, these roadside bombs in Vietnam, or in the Middle East now. Our equipment was the bombs they would set in the fish traps in the rivers, the canals to try and get the boats. So that became the new tactic, and then when we carried troops, first group of boats would shoot their way through and we'd insert troops on both sides to try and drive them out. So about the time that I was ordered up to Kazran 1 to become training officer, they had pulled back from the riverbank. They were no longer doing ambushes and bunkers, at least in the areas I operated in. But they began to plant claymore mines, and they weren't very good at aiming them yet. So a boat would come back with all of his antenna cut off at one level or whatever. But and this was particularly bothersome, scary when you were in the narrow canals. But they were working on their tactics, and I think a lot of that came to fruition on Sea Lords. Now, I did not go on Sea Lords because it didn't begin until after I went up to staff. But I saw the initial starts of some of those tactics.